He's double fisting over
I
there.
am.
Oh. That's just, no.
How do those flavors mix?
Weed.
Not very well. Fuck me.
All right. Who's got compatible lungs for him?
1, 2, 3, not it.
God, I'm done. Oh, God.
Already?
Oh.
So what's the other one?
Cookies and cream. Or Dozy-Dos. I can't remember.
I think that's the Dosey-Dos.
I was gonna say, you had Dosey-Dos last time.
Cookies and cream this
Okay.
weekend.
I've got Dosey-Do flour.
Mm.
I think that's part of what's in that bowl. I mixed 3
And
different
then didn't
ones.
you bring your gelato as well?
Yes. Gelato's pretty much untouched.
Because blueberry.
Kush. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about, I got a new cartridge this last weekend. Blueberry Kush from Lilac Labs,
Local.
right? And I swear the motherfucker smells exactly like blueberries,
Oh, and it tastes like it too.
right?
Mhm.
Like fucking delish.
We'll see,
Awesome.
we'll see how the high is. We will grade it at the end.
If you remember.
I won't, but you might. You're sober.
Ah.
Ish.
I might. We'll see.
So we're here to re-record the Conspiracy Theories episode.
Nice.
I heard a conspiracy that the audio went bad. That's why they took it down.
You know, I mean, if you really want to believe it, like, somebody could be out there jamming the signal, man.
That's true. They don't want to hear what we have to say.
They don't want us to say what they don't want us to hear.
Nobody wants to hear what we have to say.
That's
Nah,
true.
no.
Except for like one person in Canada and a couple people in other countries.
Yep. we're
Me,
getting there.
when I'm at home getting high by myself.
Oh yeah, I listen to every episode.
The
Pretty
gang's all here.
My husband's like, we have 3 listens. I was like, yeah, it's probably you, me, and the other 2.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I was listening to another podcast, and they too had to re-record one of their episodes a few times. So I didn't feel too bad because it's a very reputable podcast. I'm like, yeah, it happens, but I was still fucking pissed.
Was it last podcast?
It was last podcast. They had moved into a new building, and apparently there's like a karate or a judo studio up above them. So
Oh,
they were
shit.
recording
Sir,
and like
it's
all the
called a
slams.
dojo.
Dojo, whatever. Doje. So yeah, apparently when they're doing their classes, it just picks up all of
Oh,
the slamming and
damn.
noise. So he's like, yeah, not a good idea. So we're going to be moving again.
Oh, no.
Whoops.
Always make sure there's not a studio above you.
Like, scout your locations. Scout your locations.
What if it was a Monday morning and there was no class?
Yeah, they probably just didn't think to be like,
Maybe
who's
they don't
above
have.
us?
Who
Maybe
lives
they
above-
don't have a sign. Maybe it's a fight club.
Ooh.
Conspiracy.
Here we go.
Down the rabbit hole.
Jeez.
All right, who's going first?
I got my
Nose
shit. I got my
goes.
shit pulled up right here. I got my shit pulled up. I was ready for this one. So I have a fondness for conspiracy theories. Like I grew up on like X-Files and shit like that, unsolved fucking mysteries and shit. Like I love myself a good conspiracy theory, and I think one of the best conspiracy theories out there, we have to stick with the OG, like the granddaddy
Tupac?
of conspiracy theory. No, fuck Tupac. No, that motherfucker's still alive down in Cuba. You know that. No, I'm talking about JFK. Like there's still to this day people that are theorizing about JFK's death. John fucking Kennedy.
Well, he was fucking, that's for sure.
Well,
Yeah.
and that ties into this conspiracy theory. No, like JFK and Marilyn Monroe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, what was going on there,
Oh, we know what was going on there.
right?
So
Or
did
do
the
we?
CIA.
And was JFK killed because of it? We may never know.
Fucking men always getting killed over women.
Women always getting killed over men.
Mm-hmm.
She's a witch.
Burn her. JFK is like a perfect conspiracy theory just to fantasize about. Like,
That's the wrong word.
what?
Imagine.
Imagine. Daydream. Fall down the rabbit hole about. Like,
Ponder.
Thought fondle.
I'm touching myself tonight mentally.
I lost my lighter again.
I've got
God
a
damn it.
mental erection.
I lost my lighter again.
I think I got one.
To the rescue.
From what I remember of the JFK assassination, it was Dallas. Was it 1962?
I think
Something like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
sounds
something like
about
that.
right. November 11th
I've been
or 12th.
there.
November 22nd, 1963. All right, so we're talking like 20 years before I was even fucking born. All right. Going down the street, fucking, you had like all the angles and shit that they were all talking about. He was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald,
allegedly.
allegedly. All right. And we'll never really know the whole truth about that one because Lee Harvey Oswald was later on killed by Jack Ruby.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
He's who really shot JFK.
Well, that kind of ties into the whole thing is really who did actually shoot JFK? Because they go through all the ballistics reports and some things just don't jive. Like the angles and the wind on that day and
The position and location.
position,
of the
location of the sun. Like they go through all this crazy shit, like all this scientific mathematical shit. And some people have come up with the conclusion that where Lee Harvey Oswald supposedly was, he couldn't have made the shot.
Mhm.
And it had to have been made from another location, the quote unquote grassy knoll
Mhm.
or whatever,
Instead of
the second
book
shooter.
depository.
Mhm.
Right? But how much of that is based on good data? Now, you're a technical guy like me, and you've worked in the veterinary community. You work in banking, so all of us are familiar with the
Common sense.
logic, common sense, and the need for precise numbers, precise measurements. All right. Did the tools and the period have an effect on the preciseness of some of those measurements that are creating these conclusions?
I would think so, being that back then forensics and all that stuff really weren't all that it was cracked up to be.
Mm-hmm.
It was still very new,
Right.
and to do all these complex
Mm-hmm.
mathematical
Calculations.
equations and calculations, I just don't think that it would be accurate. I mean, it'd be accurate to a certain extent, I suppose, but nowhere near like today's levels. But
Right.
when you go back in today's levels, nothing's different.
Yeah.
That in physics is so hard to get right. There are a lot of things that people don't think to take into account when, they're talking about, angle and blah.
Mhm.
What about defects in the bullet that are going to change its trajectory?
Mhm.
Mhm.
If it was a defective bullet, it could have done weird things. All
Yep.
right. If it's Dallas, we're talking about humidity.
Mm-hmm.
If it's too dry, it's going to have an effect. If it's too wet, it's going to have an effect. All right. Temperature. All right. If
Well,
we're
it's hot.
calculating the
Mhm.
humidity,
Well, it was November, so it was late fall
Mm.
or early fall.
the instruments that were used at that time to measure humidity and temperature, were they calibrated properly? Were they precise enough?
Mhm.
You know, you've been watching a lot of those airline murder porns.
Yeah, I have.
You know, you understand the necessity for some of those precise measurements.
Mhm.
Is that a factor in things? People are looking for the second shooter because they want to have a second shooter to look for. And then you have like the whole political aspect of it. You know, JFK was not the president America wanted, but the one that America needed at the time.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
He was was it Vietnam veteran or World War II?
World War II.
Yeah, there we go. You know, big time hero. The kind of all-American boy.
Mhm.
You know, if he was to be
He was handsome.
the American Harvey Dent, if there ever was one.
He's very young for the position at the time.
Mm-hmm. What, 35 years old
Something like
or
that.
something like that? One of the youngest to ever be inaugurated.
Mhm.
And he was a bit more liberal-leaning,
Mm-hmm.
which he was one of the few people in my memory that could have actually united the nation. You know, very few people have ever actually done something like that.
Mhm.
Was he killed because of that?
110%. I believe that one.
Well, you got to look at some of the facts too of the day. From some of the things that I had seen and read, his motorcade was sent down a different road last minute.
Mm-hmm.
Who made those calls and why?
Mm-hmm.
CIA.
Mm-hmm.
Coincidence? I don't know.
I think not.
I think not.
Question.
But yes, was his political aspirations, that rubbed some people the wrong way?
Absolutely. Of course it did. And at that point in time, uniting a nation was not something most people were going to tolerate.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Which is ridiculous.
Small-minded folk.
Well,
Still, some things haven't changed in the past
150
60 years.
mm-hmm. Was it his stance on African Americans and reintegration?
I mean, it could have just been his
Desegregation.
overall demeanor and what he actually stood for
Mhm.
that people had the issue with. And they're like, yep, this isn't going to work. The people finally won and the government didn't like it.
Can't go having those, by the people, for the people.
No.
Not in this country.
Where
You
are you
know,
getting that bullshit from?
Right?
Was
You're running
it was it
document somewhere.
was it a shadow cabal that is secretly pulling the strings behind everything that happens in the nation, or
Court of Owls.
was it people in particular party leaderships that were kind of losing their grasp on power?
Was it the Illuminati?
Did anybody ever explore an angle from foreign interference?
That was another factor. We're in the middle of the Cold War.
Cuban Missile Crisis had happened, and
We had just come out of the McCarthy era, so you have commies around every corner.
there was a lot going on in that time, and it just seems awfully interesting that such an interesting political figure was killed the way he was.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think Harvey did it?
I don't see why not.
I don't know if he did it, but he was definitely involved, whether it was to be the one to take the fall
Mhm.
or what. But
Maybe it was a suicide mission.
you do
You'll
this.
go in history, but you die.
Yeah.
Or the government needed to clean up that loose end?
Mm-hmm.
Like, okay, the deed is done. Take them out.
Mm-hmm.
The government never cleans up their loose ends.
Never.
That never happens.
Were the
Sorry.
Clintons around back then?
Sorry to the agents listening in on this podcast.
If you're an FBI and you heard that, no, you didn't.
No, FBI doesn't care. NSA's who you got to worry about.
Eat my shorts.
Or what was the other acronym that we always loved? ODA. That was another good
Yes,
one.
ODA.
Love that one.
What is
Other
OD?
Defense Agency.
You're not part of the alphabet soup. You got some of the leftover letters
you don't get a name.
because you don't actually exist.
Or do they?
Conspiracy. Now, I remember you had a couple of good conspiracies, because I remember you had like your notes and everything on it.
Oh, yeah. I got my whole green composition ideology notebook.
Because that's a thing.
It is.
Fucking
And look,
taker.
it's all broken up. I've got highlighted things. It's very, very
I think
helpful.
the bigger question is you're going to be able to read.
That was going to be my next question is I forgot to bring the light bar. I always liked the Titanic. Honestly, as a girl growing up in the 90s, yes, it started with Leo. But I actually got interested in, the entire story of it. And it wasn't until recently that I uncovered a couple of conspiracies about the Titanic. Because, I always looked into the story behind it. I wasn't looking for any, questions. I was just learning about history. So the known facts that, every person who has looked into Titanic, it went down, April 14th of 1912.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it didn't go down. It was like 2 a.m. that it sunk, so it was actually April 15th. And a good number of the passengers and crew that were aboard that ship passed away. We lost 1,517 out of just shy of 2,300. A couple of theories that I came across. One was the J.P. Morgan theory. Yes, he's the guy that owns Chase Bank and things like that. He was also the owner of the White Star Line,
Mm-hmm.
which is the company that commissioned the Titanic. He was supposed to be on the Titanic for that maiden voyage. Last minute, canceled his ticket. But the people that didn't cancel their ticket, who were invited by him, were Colonel Jacob Astor and his wife. He's a hotel and skyscraper mogul at the time. Isidore Straus and his wife, who were bankers and the owners of Macy's. And Benjamin Guggenheim, who was a builder of mining machinery, which was real big at the time. These were his main competition in life because they were all kind of taking a chunk of his pie. So people think that it was a planned disaster, that he tricked them onto that ship and sank it on purpose.
With
Damn.
IEDs, bombs.
That's deep.
I mean, when you want
TikTok brought this to my attention. So, of course, I had to look into it further.
I mean, I don't really use TikTok as my source of information.
That's why I went on to research it more.
I use Wikipedia instead.
Yes, good old wiki.
Whatever. I go to Facebook News, okay?
Shit.
Who doesn't love a wiki theory, though?
Right?
Wikis are good.
I mean, that's one hell of a way to rub out your competition.
Shit.
Yeah.
Like,
And-
yeah, let's all go
I mean,
on.
that's some like BioShock Andrew Ryan level shit right there.
Mm-hmm.
So, another conspiracy, still tied to J.P. Morgan, but not the planned assassination of his competitor, rather insurance fraud.
Mm.
The Titanic, while being a brand new ship, had a sister ship called the Olympic.
This is
Who
one of my
was-
favorites.
Yeah. It was, an older ship. It had, gotten damage over the years.
Mhm.
But aside from just a few
Cosmetic. type.
cosmetic things, like, a closed walking balcony versus an open one, things that are just minor.
Mhm.
It looked just like the Titanic. It was pretty much a mirror image. So what people think is the Titanic was insured for less than what it was built for, while the Olympic was built so long ago, wasn't worth much. But he decided to commit some insurance fraud, repaint the Olympic to say Titanic, and send that ship out on the maiden voyage, a ship that's old and damaged, and not caring if it sinks or not, because if it does sink,
Gets the payout.
I insure it for $5 million. It probably cost me $2 million to make.
And in its service span, it's probably made back
Mm-hmm.
some of that money.
So then now you've got money to possibly build another one,
Reinvest
or
or
actually use the Titanic for
Make
some
the
things.
Titanic profitable.
Mm-hmm.
Or
Or-
relabel the Titanic since it sank.
Yeah.
Recoup the cost of the ship that you can no longer use.
Mhm.
You know, you make some back versus making none back.
Right.
So there were some stories that came out as deathbed confessions for the Olympic having been the one that sank.
Ooh.
There was a man named James Fenton who worked in the boiler room, and he said that, the crew knew, but they were told, this is the Titanic.
Hmm.
If you get my drift.
Hint, hint, wink, wink, nudge,
Uh-huh.
nudge.
So on his deathbed, he said that he was sworn to secrecy, but the Titanic did not sink. It was the Olympic.
As one of the survivors from the accident.
But it's always one of those things like, do you actually believe it? Or is this person just trying to cement themselves in history?
Is that person actually a credible witness?
Mm-hmm.
Was he ever actually on
the ship.
the boats?
Because, they didn't really keep a census of boiler room crew. They weren't important. you probably kept track of how many you had,
Mhm.
but names were probably limited to maybe supervisors or
Or even
things like
payroll.
that.
You know, maybe
Follow
not.
the money. Dudes are getting paid somehow.
But yeah, there were a lot of things, that pointed to they sunk that ship on purpose. Now, whether it was a planned assassination or insurance fraud,
Why not both?
ooh,
Kill two birds with one stone.
¿por qué no los
Or
dos?
one iceberg.
I think my favorite fact that I've learned is had the Titanic or the Olympic hit the iceberg head on, it wouldn't have sank.
It's because they tried to avoid it.
It would
Did
have
the
limited
damage,
the damage to 2 to 3 compartments
Mm-hmm.
versus sideswiping the bitch. You're good, and filling all 17.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Your ship would not have sank.
Credible captain. Probably the one that boated the Suez Canal.
Boated.
Pivot. Pivot.
You're good. We can flip a bitch right here. No, it's fine. You'll fit. That's what she said.
Austin Powers.
Beep.
Bam, bam.
Now, there are some oppositions to these, as there are with any good conspiracy theory. The Titanic's ship number, because every ship that's made has a ship number.
Okay.
Now, every part and tool that is going to be on that ship is stamped with this number. We're talking wrenches have this number on it. Sheeting for the walls. This number is everywhere.
Does airplanes do something similar?
Not
Probably.
quite to that degree. But yes, there are certain identifiers in various places, but not to that level.
So the Titanic's ship was 401. The Olympics was 400. All of the wreckage that has been recovered that this number is readable says 401. And, one of the cosmetic differences that we were talking about, the Titanic had a closed promenade versus the Olympic having an open one, because the main complaint of, people that were taking rides on the Olympic were, the sea mist. So the Titanic had this new feature to make it, more attractive.
Mm-hmm.
And in the wreckage, you find a closed promenade.
Yeah, but if part of the conspiracy is that they retrofitted the Olympic to look like the Titanic, wouldn't they have closed the promenade off on the Olympic before
could
they
have,
sank her?
but it depends on how long they were planning this for. It doesn't take long to slap new paint on it.
Yeah, but I mean, if you're going to go full bore, you're going to go full bore.
That, or they could have just taken the pieces off the real Titanic and put them on there.
Yeah.
It was a sister ship. It looked
You know
just
how
like it.
long that would have taken, though, if every piece was stamped?
Right. You'd have to go back through and restamp
Yeah.
every piece.
No, we're
Or
just talking
swap.
like, cosmetically making it look
Oh,
like
yeah,
the
that'd be easy.
Titanic.
Paint the name on the boat. Yeah.
Change the promenade is what we were currently
Mhm.
talking about.
I'm thinking that was a doable modification.
But yeah, every piece of wreckage that has been, not
Mhm.
worn so bad that you couldn't read these numbers says 401,
Hmm.
being the Titanic.
But isn't there another aspect that the Titanic only had, I think it was 14 portholes, and the Olympic
Had
had
16.
16?
Mm-hmm. And all of the wreckage has
14
the
portholes.
14.
That kind of spells to me it was the actual
The
Titanic.
Titanic.
Yeah.
I can get on board with the assassination. I can get on board
Of course you
with
can.
the insurance fraud.
I've got oppositions for those as well.
Really?
I do. I
Let's
have an
hear it.
opposition for every single one. So the opposition to JP Morgan's was he did not cancel his ticket at the last minute. He canceled it way back in March, which, if the ship sank in November is several
Mhm.
months' notice,
Right.
due to a business problem. He had just bought a bunch of artwork and things in France, and he was trying to bring them home
Mhm.
to America. But the French had just enacted this new, I'm going to call it a customs red tape,
Mm.
that makes it harder for international buyers to export their their purchases back to their home country.
It's called the "Fuck You or France" amendment.
Right.
Basically. So that kind of made that one fall flat on its face, that it was a planned assassination. But these so-called rivals, yeah, they're business rivals, but they were actually in favor of the Federal Reserve that was being created at the time. JP Morgan, being in the banking business, he was on the short list to make this happen.
Mm-hmm.
And Guggenheim, one of the ones that was assassinated, was very vocal about his support for this. So if anything, you'd want to keep that guy around.
Yeah.
Because he's a big dog.
The banker's your friend when you need to borrow money.
Uh-huh.
And if you're going to start a new business venture, which most of these people
Strauss openly supported it.
Yeah.
Guggenheim and Astor didn't say one way or another, but at the very least, they weren't vocally opposed to it.
would. Mm-hmm. No, it makes sense.
So at the very least, you'd want to keep Strauss with you.
Mm-hmm.
And there was some small offshoot one that I'm like, okay, this is just someone trying to get their 5 minutes. Of course, there is the mummy
What?
conspiracy to the Titanic.
I've heard this one too.
So I didn't.
Are we talking like fucking Brendan Fraser? The
No,
Mummy?
we're
Or are
talking
we
like King
like
Tut.
Not quite there.
King Tut. Okay.
So I didn't even write any notes on this because I didn't want to pay it that much attention because it's
Shit.
pretty obviously dumb. I can't remember her name now, but she was one of the main characters, I guess, in the movie Titanic. You know, Steel Mary. You know, she was new money but made a name for herself, and she lives on in history. Apparently not in my brain.
Made a name for herself.
That she was transporting some Egyptian property that she had just gotten from someone who had sold it from a tomb raid.
Okay.
So, like the curse of King Tut, anyone that has anything to do with these remains or treasures is cursed and dies.
Mm-hmm.
You know, a lot of people are saying it's because of bacteria that's been underground for God knows how many years, and I'm for that one. But of course, everyone always thinks that there's a curse because it's Egyptian and it's old and you messed with dead things.
I mean, it's a sound theory.
It is. I mean, it's in almost every single superstition, I guess, is you don't fuck with dead things.
They can't be wrong. They can't all be wrong.
Yes, they can.
Yeah, they can.
Humans are fallible creatures, okay? We're dumb. Anyway.
Any technology sufficiently advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic?
Yeah, that. Anyway. Of course, there was that mummy theory that because these artifacts were on this boat, it was cursed to sink. And there
Sounds
was
legit to me.
Sounds like a good movie plot.
one of the survivors that was on the Titanic the night that it sank was a journalist. He even told stories, like when he wrote about this when he got home, he told stories about hearing about these cursed Egyptian artifacts that were on board. So he, you know, is feeding into this conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
Guess who dies unexpectedly? The journalist.
I don't know. Maybe it's because he fucking survived a shipwreck and died later on because of the stress of it all. I don't know.
Probably.
Nah,
but
the
yeah.
autopsy determined it was cursed Egyptian artifacts.
Right? Like that's some X-Files shit right there. That's some Dana Scully comes in and says, "No, he just fucking died because he fucking died. He's fucking human and humans die."
But someone who heard or read a lot of the stories that he had put out there started thinking, what if this guy was cursed? People went to this guy because they knew he read all the stories and knew the most about what he had told. So they would talk to him about it. And he's like, I don't even want to give you secondhand information lest I be cursed, basically. He lived to a ripe old age. So then there are people like, oh, okay, so the guy that told the stories and kept the curse alive died, and the one that refused to let it spread, lived forever. Okay, this is cursed.
Yet we're talking about the exact same curse right now, and I
We
mean
don't
without
know the intricacies and the details, though,
yeah,
and we haven't actually seen or touched the artifacts.
We
neither-
can't even remember who brought him on board.
That's fair. I don't know. It just seems far fetched.
Yeah, that's why I didn't bother taking too many notes on it, because it was one of those,
Right.
it's like, oh, this is dumb, but this is really, really
Right.
funny.
It would make a great horror movie plot,
Like I said, I'm pretty sure they've done that before.
right? Like it
Which
would make a
Indiana
great
Jones
plot.
was that?
Hmm.
The Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, name any of them.
That's my point. Crystal Skull, Temple
Mhm.
of Doom.
Yeah. Ancient dead things that have curses attached to them.
AKA my dick.
That's not a curse. That's chlamydia.
Is-
It itches like hell.
It only burns when I pee.
The name of
By the
my
way,
life.
honey, you should get yourself checked.
Oh.
No comment.
Oh God, half chub.
Moist.
Moist, plump.
I'm good. Staying out of that one.
Oh, you're no fun. You need
Oh,
No, I'm no
You're not-
fun because you've got JFK and you've got the Titanic and
Yeah, what do you got?
you know what I'm bringing to the table?
What are you bringing to the
These
table?
nuts, boobs,
Got him!
triple D boobs.
Bigger than that. Give me
Oh.
some credit. No, I'm just a J cup.
Oh,
You're a Jacob?
Nice.
Is that what you identify as now?
That's right. I'm not sure what pronouns go with that, but I'll work on it. You mentioned what did you call it? Aircraft murder porn? Is that what you?
Aircraft murder. porn.
Yes.
Yeah, just like we watch investigative murder porn.
Yeah, same kinds of things. So
We watched some investigative murder porn last night.
once upon a time, a long, long time ago, in another lifetime, I was obsessed with aircraft disasters. Given my career and everything else at the
This
time,
last
it was.
week.
Was
Shut
this
up.
before or
Why are you
after?
judging me? How do you hate me?
Did you get into this deep before or after 9/11?
Oh, before. It actually spawned from this
Helps me gauge
specific
where-
crash because it was in 96, so I'm a teenager at that point, and
Mhm.
this one really caught my eye at the time because July 17th, 1996, Boeing 747 exploded in midair just off the coast of Long Island.
I remember hearing about that.
TWA Flight 800 had just taken off, 230 people on board. 12 minutes into takeoff, it just exploded. Over the next 25 years, they were still trying to kind of piece together what happened. It took them 15 years just to release the official report, which is unheard of. Usually it's 2 to 3 years, especially since they were actually able to recover quite a bit of the wreckage from this.
Did they get the black box?
They got everything. No indication was given that there were any problems within the aircraft before it went down. But where the conspiracy part comes in is this plane had exploded. There were 156 witnesses that saw it explode. There's video footage from civilians and everything.
Wow.
The official cause, from the report that came out from the NTSB, was an electrical failure in the wiring caused a short over the fuel tank, and
Causing
that's what
an
caused it to explode. The conspiracy theory, and backed up by 154 out of 156 witnesses, is that they saw a light trail going up to the aircraft and then it exploding.
Like a ground to air missile.
Precisely. What also made this investigation so interesting is usually when something like this happens, you have a variety of government agencies that work together. You've got the FBI, you've got the CIA, you've got, obviously the NTSB, FAA,
Okay.
you name it. And they all work different parts of what they do because, especially in the mid 90s, there was a huge upswing in aircraft bombs. Some of you may have heard of Lockerbie, the one that exploded over Scotland. There was one that was exploded over in Canada, one in the Japanese airport,
One that
Narita.
was exploded.
Yes.
Exploded.
Exploded everywhere. But this one in particular, like I said, it was so soon after takeoff that it just didn't kind of feel right. Like, how could a short get that big that fast? And the types of wiring that were over the fuel tank, a lot of people say there's no way they could have caused it. They determined that it was not a bomb just due to the wreckage that they did found. There was no curling out from the outside from an impact like they had seen in a lot of the other exploding aircrafts. There's certain ways that the fuselage bends, certain scarring and marking and pitting.
Well, yeah, all your pressure
Entry
coming
hole,
from the
exit
entrance.
holes.
And even in different parts of the aircraft, none of that was visible in the wreckage. There was also a lot of talk, though, saying that there was no impact site. So, like, from a missile or anything found.
It's just spontaneously combusted.
That's kind of been the thing. But during this investigation, the FBI would come in the middle of the night and just remove certain pieces from the wreckage, which is highly irregular.
Sounds like manifest.
Because there are pieces that are removed by various agencies all the time for certain testing or inspection.
Yeah.
But the fact that they were only coming in the middle of the night, and of course they still have to sign in and sign out. It was all done by the FBI, and those pieces were never returned. So the big theory is that it was one of our missiles during some kind of test or misfire of some kind.
Misidentification.
It wasn't even so. It may have been misidentified. It may not have been. They may have just accidentally hit the wrong button.
Oops.
And the thing went up,
Spilled
and
my
that's
coffee.
why,
Conspiracy. Somebody on board was a target of interest.
Ooh.
there's a lot of those theories out there depending on who was on board. Now, in this particular
Sacrifice
crash,
the few for the great of the all.
there was no high-profile targets
That we know of.
out of the 300 passengers on board. Another thing is a lot of the witnesses were visited by CIA.
If you saw this, no, you
Men
didn't.
in black.
Yep, trying,
Black
asking
suit,
for
black
their
tie.
footage, their pictures, those kinds of things. And it wasn't up until
Is this your only copy?
2015 they
Yes, it is.
released a new documentary interviewing those witnesses on the side, and people were finally breaking the silence. And
Ooh.
5 of the original investigators from the original team have said it doesn't jive. The official report doesn't make sense. When
Just
they
like the
looked
deathbed
at
confessions.
when they looked at other aircraft of that exact same type, service record, so on and so forth, no indication of any faulty wiring anywhere in the aircraft. Like
Not
I said,
like a known issue with the manufacturer or shit
nothing,
like
let alone anything over the fuel tank. I mean, that has never been a thing before, and never has it been a thing since. So there's just a lot of information out there that, why would, of all the plane crashes, why would they want to cover this one up? Well, the big thing that makes sense is because we are the ones that shot it down.
Was there a Samsung Note on board?
that.
Someone was using their phone during takeoff.
I read that official report. It had a lot of black lines in it.
Yes.
Wow.
The ending's really captivating.
They've started to decommission the wreckage now, because it's been in the same warehouse since
Declassify or decommission?
decommission. Like, they're taking it apart
Oh.
and they're destroying it. It should be completely destroyed by, I think they said April of 2022, and then all of the evidence will
Oh,
be
great.
gone
Now
forever.
there's something fucking... Now some shit's gonna go wrong next year, too.
Right.
Damn it.
So they're hoping there's another team that's actually wanting to get back in, like I said, some of the original team members, and reinvestigate to see if they can come up with
A better explanation.
a better explanation, no matter fault or whatnot. But it's very
They want an
interesting.
answer.
One of the things you can look at, if you look at aircraft maintenance histories and things, whenever there has been an incident or an accident, changes are always made.
Mhm.
There's always some kind of airworthiness directive or service bulletin or some inspection that has to be done to make sure these things don't happen again.
Things that are written by engineers that technicians don't know how to.
I can
They do
I can
warranty
do a whole
recalls.
podcast on that alone.
Right.
They do warranty recalls
Basically.
on everything.
But in this particular case, unlike all others where, yes, okay, we saw something explode or we replicated this and we made these changes, no other aircraft had this issue. None. Not a single one. Not even anything even remotely close. Which is highly, highly unusual. I'll take, for example, the Aloha Airlines convertible aircraft where the top blew off.
Mm-hmm.
They...
No shit.
No, it did.
I remember
What?
watching half of this one with her. Like,
Yeah, there
fucking, like...
Which is funny is when you said convertible airlines, I immediately thought
Stewardess
the
gets
top was
fucking
down. I was
sucked down at the roof.
Yeah,
Oh,
and it
damn.
caused a compression
Rapid decompression.
explosion, and literally the entire top part of the main part of the fuselage was completely gone. The only thing holding the aircraft together was the bottom beams,
Jeez.
and they were able to land it successfully. But like
Yeah.
I
how many
said,
people died?
just the flight
One.
attendant. They never recovered her body.
They recovered
Oh,
her,
that's
like,
worse.
skull matter.
Well, yeah,
Off the
the
side of the-
Oh.
And then they
The
think
impression
she got
of her-
sucked through the jet engine or just
no,
lost at sea.
just lost at sea.
Yeah.
That's so sad for her
Oh.
family.
She would have been liquefied on impact.
Yeah.
That's true.
But my point with that example
Chum.
is when they went and
Would've been quick.
when they went and inspected all of the fuselages for the type of damage that they were looking for, they found it on several aircrafts that had been in that area due to the increase in salt and air,
Yeah.
because there's just
Yeah.
the Hawaiian, little
humidity.
island jumpers. It affected the fuselages differently than it did the ones on dry land or in different areas, even though they had the same amount of hours and those kinds of things. So usually, almost always, something is found in more than one aircraft. There was one with the flight data recorder. It kept cutting in and out. They were able to trace back a bad fuse, bunch of the other aircraft at that same time.
Common faults.
Exactly. And in this, TWA 800, there's no other common fault found in any other aircraft, which is another reason between that, like I said, the witnesses and just why would we be so insistent on covering it up?
So, what's the more prevailing theory? That it was an accident and we fired on the wrong aircraft? Was it I think, targeted assassination?
Planned assassination.
Like I said,
Or were we testing a new weapon?
and that's just it.
Just dematerialized.
Because wasn't Project Star Wars going on during this time?
What?
That I don't know.
There was a
about.
project Star Wars.
Yeah.
I only know about the movie.
Space laser satellites. That might be another conspiracy for later.
I saw that in
I
movies.
don't think it's a conspiracy,
Yeah.
actually.
Kind of going off something you jokingly mentioned earlier. Guess who was in office?
JFK.
Close. Clinton. It was during the Clinton administration.
That's when they got started.
So, like I said, it's always been one. Like I said,
When
it
does
was the-
Epstein come in the picture?
Right.
He didn't kill himself.
Another
Epstein was
episode.
supposed to be on board, but he canceled his ticket last minute.
Like I said, I just remember watching on the news
So
just
he could unalive himself later.
the wall of fire on the water because it just burned and burned for well
Damn.
over a day.
Oh yeah.
It's a lot of
And
fuel and oil and
because it had just taken off, it was a
Jet fuel.
fully loaded
Yep.
going from JFK to
All that jet fuel.
London, like
Oh,
Oh.
dude.
Yeah.
Heathrow. It was
just
yeah.
across the pond there.
So it was
yeah.
a very heavy aircraft. Yes, that was full of fuel that exploded. So yeah, it burned for a long time.
They were trying to send a missile to London. That's all.
Shit.
But that's
Made
what
in the U.S.
that's what really
Hey!
kind of
Remember July 4th? Well, yeah, fuck you.
They
We're
had
going to make sure you don't forget it either.
they had crazy eyes on the targeting control.
Looks good to
It's
me.
good to me.
What'd you bring to the table, babe?
Drugs.
Oh, you too, huh?
Legal ones.
So my conspiracy theories about 40, it's over 40 years old, it's from 79. A small town right outside Atlanta known as Elberton. It's the granite capital of the world. So there's this fellow named R.C. Christian. He approached the most well-known granite manufacturer in the nation and had a meeting with their president. Told him that he represented a group of about 20 Americans. You know, they were to remain anonymous and wanted to build these guide stones. The president connected R.C. with their banker to help acquire the land that he wanted for these guide stones to be put up. So the land in question was owned by a farmer, and the farmer still lives there to this day.
So they didn't buy his land from him?
They did buy just the section of land they wanted, just a 5-acre plot
Okay,
of
so not
his
all
land.
of his
Not
land.
all of it, just part of it. So just bought a 5-acre plot, and then later on, the ownership of the land was transferred to the county. So they begin development and erection of what known as the Georgia Guidestones.
Erection.
So in total, there are 6 pieces to the Guidestones. There's 4 vertical stones, 1 capstone, and a center slab, weighing around 119 tons in total.
She said
Jesus.
wing.
Not weighing. Weighing.
So we're talking like 20 tons a piece.
Something like that, yeah.
Jesus
That's
fucking
a
Christ.
lot.
That's a lot of granite.
Right?
That is so heavy.
That's fucking heavy.
So there's writing on all 5 of the stones. Written in 4 ancient languages, Babylonian, Classical Greek, Sanskrit, and Egyptian hieroglyphs, the capstone reads, "Let these be guide stones to an age of reason." On the 4 vertical slabs, there are 10 guiding principles in 8 languages: English, Russian, Mandarin, Chinese, Arabic, Hebrew, Swahili, Hindi, and Spanish. And those are the most commonly spoken languages.
Yes, Spanish. Love how English wasn't anywhere on there.
It was on there. That was the first one I read.
Oh, I must not have heard that one. I was going to say, why wasn't English on there?
Yeah.
Have another hit, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
The 10 guiding principles on the 4 slabs are: maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity, unite humanity with a living new language, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court, avoid petty laws and useless officials, balance personal rights with social duties, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite, be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature, leave room for nature.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, really,
I mean, it speaks truth.
right?
Lots of truth.
There's certain things that are concerning, but only because of the environment that we've grown up in. And that's the eugenics part.
Right.
Keep population in balance with nature. 500 million. Oof. Like,
That's a severe cutback.
yeah.
Boy, if only someone had maybe had like a global plague recently or something.
Well, I actually did research on that. If we needed to cut back the population to 500 million, we would have to wipe out, I think it was 76% of inhabitants on Earth.
Yeah.
That sounds
It'd
about
be
right.
a cataclysmic type.
Massive. Huge.
Nuclear war?
Zombie apocalypse. Global pandemic.
Ooh.
Not this one. Better luck next time.
Yet.
The part I thought that was interesting about that was, didn't it say something about breeding, diversity, and fitness?
And,
Yes.
and,
Eugenics.
you know,
Yeah.
with wisdom.
Yeah.
Which, I mean,
Well,
wouldn't be, I mean, look
Wouldn't
at
be
the
a bad
standard
thing.
we have
Yeah.
for dog breeding and cat breeding. Why wouldn't, you know,
this is
breed
basically
humans from the
the
same thing?
how to avoid the movie Idiocracy.
Yeah.
Electrolytes.
There's quite a bit of conspiracies behind these stones and what their actual purpose is, of course. Some say that there's an energy to the stones, and taking a picture of them at the right angle produces a blue orb around all the stones. So I looked up a bunch of pictures of this, and I find that out of all of them, nobody's caught that. So
Okay.
I call BS on that.
Mm-hmm.
Generally, in terms of photography, like if you're getting a blue orb around something, it's something you're doing with the camera. You're getting reflection off of something.
Lens flare.
Lens
yeah,
flare,
that's
yep.
the thing, the flare.
So I don't think that it's a thing. In regards to the energy from the last bit, though, people say that if you stand inside the stones, you can feel an energy surging through your body, which I feel is kind of linked to another conspiracy theory, which seems to come up in every conspiracy theory. Aliens.
I was gonna say, is it the mummy?
No. Nope, aliens.
There were hieroglyphs.
There were hieroglyphs.
This is the other Indiana Jones movie.
Oh, okay.
But people are saying that it's a beacon made to contact alien life, summon UFOs, things like that. Aliens. I mean, sure, why not?
I believe in aliens.
Well, I mean, the 20 people at the beginning.
Yeah,
Who were they?
exactly.
Could they have been
Lizard people,
Extraterrestrial.
extraterrestrial
other
beings.
Yeah.
But as always with conspiracy theories and aliens coming in, there's also one other side that comes in. Satan.
Yeah.
Hail Satan! Yeah!
Hail yourself.
So the reason why Satan got brought up is because the Guidestones bear similar resemblance to Stonehenge, which has been tied to satanic things in the past.
It's not a bad thing.
A whole bunch of church groups from the town that they immediately came to it and like, this is for Satan worship, this and that. There have been no recorded satanic events that have ever happened at the Guidestones or anything like
Don't
that.
believe in it. It's Satan.
Well, does it weigh the same as a duck?
I mean, does a duck weigh 120 tons?
I don't know.
It's a big
You
ass
gotta
duck.
weigh every duck to find out.
Maybe it's a portal to hell.
Oh shit!
I've seen that movie. I know how it ends.
I think
Fun.
Carl Urban was in that movie.
But I feel all of those weak conspiracy theories hold nothing to the last few that I found when I researched it. These ones hold some weight, I feel.
Ooh.
So there's definitely some extreme weirdness around these stones. I mean, they're huge, they're massive, cryptic messages just there in existence.
Archaic language.
Yep. Dead languages, things like that. So when the stones were commissioned, the president of the granite company, the banker, and the farmer were all sworn to secrecy. So obviously they know something. Or they made up that they're sworn to secrecy. After
Okay.
the encounters, no one involved has seen R.C. Christian again. As being heard from, the banker has a letter from R.C. Christian shortly after 9/11 happened.
Whoa.
And just basic generic talk, nothing crazy, but nothing ever again. And the banker, he still works at that bank.
Right.
He still works at that bank. And they've interviewed him, and that's how we know about the letter and everything. But after that, he's like, just ghost, gone.
Why do I get goosebumps every time 9/11 gets brought up?
Because it's a
Conspiracy.
conspiracy.
It is, I know, and it's such a juicy one.
So after R.C. Christian disappeared, conspiracy started to form, at least around him,
As they do.
as they should do disappeared.
Right.
So they think he used a fake name,
Obviously.
and that he is part of an esoteric order called the Rosicrucian Order, and that the pseudonym R.C. Christian is the legendary founder of the order, Christian Rosencrantz. So the Rosicrucian Order is a community that studies metaphysical laws of the universe.
Ooh.
Everybody's interested now.
Right?
Physics nerds.
So people think that the RC in his pseudonym name stood for Rosy Cross, which was the emblem of the order. And the whole goal of the order is complete transcendence between astral, mental, and physical planes, and to know the essence of all three of those states of being. So very spiritual, with nature, which makes sense being
Hippies.
that one hippies. Yeah,
God
man,
damn it.
fuck. Which makes sense with number 10 of the guidelines,
Yeah.
which is leave room for nature,
Well,
leave
just
room for
the
nature.
the whole guidelines in and of themselves is
Yeah.
very far
Smart.
left, if you will.
Well, I think it's interesting. Make room for nature is twice back to back too.
Because it's the most
Mhm.
important one.
Is it, you know,
So nice they said it twice.
It's a warning.
In order to know the essence of all those states of being,
They had to drink RC cola.
it would take lifetime after lifetime after lifetime of knowledge in order to obtain that.
Mm-hmm.
It is believed that RC is one of the ascended masters and was granted the elixir of life because he was able to achieve that transcendence.
That's some fucking
Time
like,
traveler.
That's
Chinese
some
mysticism
Doctor
type
Strange
shit.
shit.
some next level
Right?
for sure.
Yeah.
So, and with him having this elixir of life, he is passing down the knowledge he knows
Mhm.
to us via those guide stones.
I'm pretty sure I've read this in like some of those fan fictions.
So it's like, but what does he know? Does he know something's coming? Does he know that if we don't change and where we're already headed, that
Mm-hmm.
something's going to
Does he
happen?
know the answer to the greatest question of them all? Why are we here?
42.
What is the meaning of life? Yeah.
So aside from the letter to the banker, after he vanished, the last thing that was left by him was a stone tablet a few yards away from the guide stones that detail the astrological placement of the stones. So that's one other thing about these guide stones is that they are set in a very specific place for a reason.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
So when they were commissioned, the guy that was actually putting them up had to get outside help from an astronomer at the University of Georgia to make sure that these stones were placed in the exact spot that they were supposed to be.
Astrological
Damn.
points.
So the specific instructions were to have the stones set in these specific spots that are aligned with celestial piles, and the center stone has an eye-level hole drilled in it oriented with the North Star. And there's a slit along the side of that that's aligned with the sun solstices and equinoxes. So the capstone also has its own light hole at the top. It's like a rectangular slit off to one side.
It's like a telescope.
It is said that at noon every day when the shit!
Sunny
Shone.
shone.
The sun shines down.
Shun.
Shame. Okay. So the capstone having its own light hole is said that every day at noon when the sun shines through on the center stone, it will indicate the day of the year.
Ooh.
Yeah. That's some next level shit right there.
Yeah.
That's some heavy.
They took
High
their
level math shit.
time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
They took their
What year was this time
time.
again? 80?
Yes,
79.
it started in 79. They were actually erected in 80.
Okay.
So astronomers have gone back and looked at all of the science behind it, if you will. Is that
Mm-hmm.
that would be
Yeah.
right?
The
Okay,
math,
the
science.
math. There you
I'll
go.
allow it.
And they have said that where they find all the calculations now, where they got their math from back in the 70s would be compared to an abacus compared to what they can do today.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Wow.
Yeah.
so it's got a lot of crazy shit
Mhm.
with where these stones are. So some also think that it could be for a new world order.
Oh.
I mean, look at it from that aspect. Those
Mhm.
guidelines
Mm-hmm.
definitely could be new world order. You know, the first guideline then would mean like mass genocide to meet that 500 million cap, which like we talked about was 70 some odd percent. It's actually 80% of the world's population.
Jesus Christ.
Oh.
So I
Yes,
mean,
meal.
that's nothing.
Tiberian sun level shit.
So and the goal of the new world order is the creation of a single world government and the destruction of national sovereignty and religion,
Mm-hmm.
which stems from other ancient esoteric groups. You know, the Rosicrucian is an esoteric group, but I mean, how many others are out there? You got, what, Freemasons?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
The quote unquote Illuminati,
Yep.
you know, stand and name for every shadow cabal and everything ever.
Oh,
True.
Yeah. The ones you
Spectre.
don't know
Every
the names of that
cult.
you got to be aware of.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Many also think that there's a time capsule buried underneath.
Ooh.
So when R.C. Christian bought the 5 acres, I'm kind of curious if he told him what these are for. And same thing with the
Mhm.
granite Granite President and the banker, because they are sworn to secrecy, allegedly.
They know the true purpose.
They may know the true purpose.
Would there be any way to like x-ray the ground underneath it to see if there's anything buried down there?
I
You'd
don't
have
know.
to get permission from the county and good fucking luck.
That's where my thoughts were. Is now that the county owns it, why doesn't the county?
Well, and that's brought up
Because
some things in my mind as
The
well.
county knows better.
Well, it's like, okay, so if the county now owns it,
Mm-hmm.
they have to, upkeep, maintain it, all that stuff.
Yeah.
There's been vandalism on it, so they've had to either
course.
replace stones and all that stuff, but
How do you replace one of those?
you'd have to remake it.
Yeah. But
Which
they
I'm
have
not-
the exact specifications.
They do.
So
But at the same time, would the county really have that much money and care? Because it's not a tourist attraction. Because that was one of that was the absolute only rule that RC Christian put down in place, was that there were to be no t-shirt stands, no like tourist bullshit
mm-hmm.
This
ever.
is not to be
This
exploited.
is not to be for that. But the county wouldn't have to uphold that, because they don't even know who the fuck this dude is.
Mm-hmm.
Or they do, and we don't know that. But that costs a lot of money.
Mm-hmm. No, but I mean, we're talking about a rural county in Georgia.
Yeah,
It's not like they have the tax revenue to
It's not like it's Los
Take-
Angeles.
take care of
exactly.
obviously some very expensive, very precise built stones.
Unless there's a fund that was already taken care of to
And that's
Which
what I
pay for
thought.
it.
Suggests government involvement.
That just always
Or
seems to happen.
The
Banker.
order, or the banker too, because that's what I thought too. I'm like, okay, the county's not going to be able to have the money to
No.
upkeep
Follow the money.
this stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, when they transferred it to the county, maybe they opened up a bank account
Mhm.
that had X amount of money.
Mhm.
Or
A fund
maybe
or
they
a trust.
continue to put money in
Mm-hmm.
for, from the order.
Yeah.
And the
Mhm.
banker still works at the bank.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, what's going to happen when he goes? Who knows?
He's not going to go,
Either
or
that
he'll pass it on.
a successor will be named for him from the
An
order.
appointed heir.
But that's true. Could be from the order.
Mm-hmm. They put their own person in place.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's what I would do.
It's like the Freemason equivalent of a pope.
Well, and they'd have the advantage now of anonymity. We know who the banker is because we know who the banker is.
Mm-hmm.
If the banker, eventually passes away, which is now very possible, whoever the quote unquote order, the Rosy Cross turns to next, we'll never know who it is.
Mm-hmm.
Ever.
Yeah, because they'll have a way to put in people where they want to.
Mm-hmm.
With
They'll
ease.
they'll just go to whoever they want to, and
Mhm.
there won't be any way to find out who.
Because it's already been 40 years.
Exactly.
But anyways, back to the time capsule. So I don't think that you'd be able to scan under there. I don't think it would ever happen. Whether stipulations from the county or
Mhm.
just the fact that good luck.
Mm.
We'll probably put a vault down there that you couldn't see through with today's technology.
Now I seem to remember something about the granite was important.
Yep, the granite was important, and that is something that we're actually going to get to in a little bit here.
Ugh.
So the farmer still lives there, and he's been interviewed fairly recently about these Georgia Guidestones and talks pretty normal about it. And one of the questions that he got asked was whether there was a time capsule under there. And when he was asked, he refused to answer, just got silent.
Who?
So when the reporter suggested that maybe the time capsule was not buried there and that the Guidestones were a map of, sorts, the farmer then replied, well, I didn't say it wasn't buried there.
I mean,
I can neither confirm nor deny.
Yeah.
Yep. Like some Area 51 bullshit.
Well, and I mean, he's getting interviewed and, could just be playing it up. But they also asked him if the Holy Grail was buried under there. And no answer, just plain face. Because beforehand, he was pretty
engaged.
pretty outgoing. And then when those questions came up, just blank face, just no more.
Trigger words.
Yeah.
Russian mind control experiment.
Huh.
So the last conspiracy that I researched was guidelines for the apocalypse and what to do afterwards, which
Yeah.
made a hell of a lot of sense.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, the only way you're going to get to that population cap is through some kind of apocalyptic event. So,
Mm-hmm.
It's a cataclysm.
Cataclysmic event.
In terms of the apocalypse, though, the biggest question I had was why Georgia? Why that specific spot
yeah.
in Georgia? And it had to be that spot.
Was that just due to the astrological, or is there a longitude latitude fact as well?
Well, that's what I thought. I thought that it was for the astrological reasons, which made a lot of sense. But there is another theory. So there's a theory out there of Earth changes. So it's first propounded by the mystic Edgar Sayce in the early 20th century that basically argues, you know, Earth is going to change, going to continue to change,
Of course.
things are going to happen, you know, and big shit's going to happen, you know, earthquakes, asteroids, like the big shit, super volcanoes.
Your map's going to look different.
Yeah, exactly. That's what he's saying. Your map's going to look different. And, you know, we're going to be missing like California and Florida and like the edge, you know, edge states
no
over
more
here.
Florida, man.
Right. No more Florida,
Global
man.
warming.
Yep.
It's already happening.
So it would change how Earth is. But according to that theory, it turns out that in addition to the changes that would alter the world, there are safe zones in the world.
Okay.
Places
And-
that are above sea level.
Not necessarily sea level, just places on the Earth that won't be destroyed by
Like outside
anything
the
natural.
Pacific Ring of Fire, or tectonic plates, or ley lines.
So they're
Yeah.
called safe zones, which would be where population would need to be rebuilt because those are obviously the safest spots.
The only places that would be inhabitable after an apocalypse.
So guess where one of those safe zones is?
Georgia.
Rural Georgia.
Huh.
So it would those
Tracks.
stones.
What about the other ones?
those stones would survive? You know, they were built there to last, built there to survive. I mean, it sits on a 13-mile wide, 6-mile deep bed of granite. Like it is
Jesus.
just massive,
Yeah.
solid as fuck.
Oh, the base is granite too?
Mm-hmm.
All underneath that spot in Georgia is granite.
Oh, I thought it was just like pillars.
It is pillars,
Yeah.
but it's set on a big ass granite fucking.
Slab, basically.
Yeah.
I didn't know it permeated so deep into the ground.
No, that's natural granite.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's on a granite bed, basically.
I thought they like fucking made us.
No, God. Yes,
Fuck.
we're gonna crane in this much granite a section at a time.
6 miles.
You're expecting it to last? Granite ain't going nowhere.
Yeah, it's like
That's the point.
13 miles wide, 6 miles deep, and like 30 miles long.
I just didn't know
No,
what the
just-
chances were that this safe zone was already sturdy.
Right?
Well, and just thinking, kind of going back along, since they brought up the nature thing so many times. Like you think about the Pacific Ring of Fire.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure we've all heard of that. If that goes off, the amount of damage. But once again, thinking about geographically
Like in
where
Yellowstone.
that is, it would be clear of
I
a
don't
lot of
want
that
Yellowstone
devastation.
to go. It's so pretty.
Well, and I mean, look at what we have in our fantasy or our myths. Walking Dead
Mm-hmm.
takes place in Georgia. Why? Because it would be the most likely place that somebody might survive after a zombie
You
apocalypse.
have everything you need.
Food, water,
Mm-hmm.
area,
Granite.
greenery, granite.
Granite.
Apparently, like, no, it makes sense.
You'll have no other humans, but you'll have the most beautiful countertops you've ever seen.
One lame ass conspiracy theory I heard on this was that the granite company did it as a marketing stunt to get people to be like, buy our granite and all that shit, because they're the biggest granite company.
That doesn't
out
make
there.
sense, though.
No, it doesn't at all. But
That would be
I
what
read
a
that, I was like,
commercial,
what
though.
the fuck?
What? Yeah, from a marketing perspective, that's fucking brilliant. But
it will live on forever.
they haven't capitalized on it in 40 years.
Well, exactly.
Yeah, we know.
Well, I mean, they might have
We
gotten
do
more
know. We
business.
haven't heard about it in 40 years.
Well, it's because our generation doesn't buy countertop. We can't afford it.
I'm almost 40 years old. Oh.
No, I've never heard of that before this evening, but that is but equal parts fascinating and terrifying.
Right.
Mhm.
Because there's still so many unknowns to it.
Well,
Oh,
like
yeah.
saying, going back to the energy and the
Mhm.
possible satanic conspiracy, what ley lines run
That's going to be
underneath that
interpreted by
area?
everybody.
Don't know.
I don't either, but I'd be curious to find out.
I mean, that'd be some crazy shit
Really?
if it was just a time capsule.
Mhm.
Ley lines are
What would be in it?
areas of energy that run
I
underneath.
my mind is I
So-
I
so like
blame
a
partly
wetland
this
kind of-
blueberry Kush, but my mind is now just like racing through this idea of that slab of granite is not a solid slab;
Okay.
it's a vault.
Okay.
So, like
And there's-
the box in the ground.
People inside. Or
See,
people
my
can
brain's
go
not
inside.
stupid.
That's the secret.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That much granite, and I know you and I have both played Fallout.
Oh yeah.
That much granite
I played Vault.
would definitely be nuke proof.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But fuck, dude, the amount of equipment you would need to make a vault.
All you need is a bunch of bottle caps, man.
Well, no, because if you think about it,
That's why they started collecting tabs when we were kids.
God damn.
it's you think about it, it's 6 miles deep. They did not have the equipment in the 70s to cut into that much granite.
Unless it's a naturally occurring
Cave.
cave.
Ooh,
I'm thinking
and they're just
Batcave.
building a door.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. In which case, they may not have needed a lot
Brain's
of
doing
equipment
good.
to dig it out. They
Right.
just
Needed to
built
polish
into
it.
yeah, make it a home.
And
Make
there's only
countertops.
I believe there's only 1 or 2 photos of these stones actually going up.
Hmm.
And they're not it's literally of them being placed, but you know, the base is already there and all that stuff.
Mhm.
So
But
there's
if-
no construction.
Right. But if there's an entryway there, who in the fuck is going to move 120 tons worth of granite to get in there?
I said there'd have to be
The
an
flood will move
external-
them.
I'm thinking like once
Or-
again, conspiracy brain, but like Lord of the Rings, you know, they go behind the rock and it's actually down in and it goes
No.
into a cave type thing.
They pulled a catch me if you can. Don't look at the elephant in the room.
Oh.
Yeah. While they're going through
Where's
this whole
the Mini
thing,
Coopers?
they're doing this whole thing where they're placing the stones.
Mm-hmm.
Look over here.
The
there's
actual
something else.
operation's actually going on somewhere else. This thing's 30 miles wide.
Mm-hmm.
Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain.
Pay no attention to what we're doing here because you're so focused on these mysterious stones going up over here.
Interesting.
Well, and I mean, we say that the technology didn't exist back then, or the equipment may not have existed, but I'm thinking
Classified.
Chernobyl
Ooh.
and how they had to dig underneath the reactor to super cool it to stop the seepage, you know, and it was a lot of manpower, but they did it.
Yeah, I'm not saying that it would be impossible, but granite is hard as fuck.
Mhm.
I mean,
It's hard as a rock.
I know.
Shit.
but yes, it
Sorry.
it can be cut,
Granted,
You know-
made an auger throw me.
and with enough manpower, you certainly could get through it. I mean, look at all the shit that got built before modern technology.
Right.
Manpower definitely a possibility,
Verde.
but holy shit, would that be so much fucking work? And I feel like there would be more coverage of it.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
You would think.
You would think, but at the same time, if it's happening 30 miles elsewhere in the middle of fucking nowhere where
Exactly.
nobody goes,
Exactly.
there's gonna be no coverage. Nobody
course not.
knows about this except for the fucking 3-4 people involved.
How many mining disasters happened around that time?
Didn't research that.
I just,
I don't know.
what a good way to get rid of people.
Mhm.
Ooh, dark.
How long has this been in
Have you met me?
planning? How long did they plan this out?
Yeah. It may have taken place.
Even though
in
the capstones
1980.
were placed in 1980
Well, he said for 20 years they've been planning this,
Oh, okay.
or longer,
or longer. Yes.
they may have only been
Disclosed
they may have only been planning the capstones for 20 years, but how
Right.
long have they been planning the overall thing?
Mm-hmm.
You know, or people fucking lie.
Oh, absolutely. This whole thing's a fucking lie.
No, they don't.
Right?
He found all this stuff on the internet. You can't lie on the internet, okay?
That's right.
They fact check you. No, I have one other question. If this particular place in Georgia is considered a quote unquote safe zone,
Mm-hmm.
are there other safe zones that exist?
Yes.
If we were to look at those other safe zones, do similar objects like this exist?
I think we're gonna have to look that up
Big
because I don't
granite
know.
deposits.
That's
Or-
something
Or
just
no, but
anything.
other
Like Stonehenge, for example.
Yeah.
Does it fall in one of those
Oh,
zones?
got
like
it.
that would be one. Or like so we know that this spot in Georgia is going to be sheltered or at least survivable after any apocalyptic event.
Right.
Are there any other zones like that?
Mm-hmm.
Their housing market just went up.
That, and would we find a similar monument?
Either a monument or, yeah, just anything that's
Some kind of guide
different or
to
special.
a better future.
I'm definitely going to research that and have to give a follow up to the
That's
listeners.
that'd be a cool one to follow
We'll do
up
on Conspiracy Volume 2.
Ideology fans, do you want to be on Ideology? Have a topic you want to hear us rant about? Drop us a comment on your favorite social platform or visit ideologypodcast.com.